Miami Book Fair to największe w Stanach targi książki. Z fotografikiem Andrew Kaufmanem spotkałam się podczas nich, by porozmawiać o jego albumie o Wynwood Walls, czyli słynnej dzielnicy graffiti i street artu, o gentryfikacji i potędze deweloperów. No, prawie zupełnie jak w Warszawie.
What you're doing is this documentation of somehow disappearing world. Because the street art has this special, well, street art is something absolutely ephemeral, yes?
Right.
It's just
it's
disappearing.
An ephemeral
So
art form.
How, what was this first reason for you to go there and to try to, well, somehow save it for future generations?
Well, I've lived in Miami a very long time.
Okay.
And every year I have attended Art Basel since the first year in 2002. And every year I make a photo essay. And so in 2012, I couldn't ignore the momentum that street art had in Wynwood.
Mm-hmm.
So I immersed myself in that subculture and photographed. And I work with a film camera, so I wasn't very interested in seeing the work every day.
Mm-hmm.
I just started throwing the film in my desk and saving it. And then when Art Basel was over, I finally sent the film to the lab. I got it processed, and I started looking at it and editing it, thinking about it. And then I put it together in some sort of a presentation, and I started sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
And people said, wow, you know, you've really captured what's happening in this neighborhood. You know, what are you going to do with this work now? I said, well, I guess I'm going to publish it. And that was the idea behind the first book. I'm in Miami Beach, the disappearing
really
street
good,
art of Wynwood.
Title, yeah.
And
Strong one.
that's how I got where I am today. I've published 3 books about Wynwood, and they each tell a little bit different story in this rapidly gentrifying area.
Speaking of gentrification, I have a few questions to ask about it. But first, please tell me how this work with artists look like. I mean, is it easy or not to, snap them, to catch them during the work? Was it easy to, I don't know, get into this?
Well, I'm not interested in snapping them per se.
No.
I'm trying to tell a much broader story. I'm a classically trained documentary photographer, so that means that I need to get to know my subjects in order to peel back the veneer to understand what it is they're trying to do, or how their work is affecting the neighborhood or people. So I'm not just walking by on the street and then snapping a picture and moving on. I'm spending time with the artists on days on end, watching their work transform the area, but also the artist, because I think that there's this special interaction that when they work in the street, that they can feel the ebb and flow and the vibe of the area. And I think now it's easier to photograph street art, but just a few years ago it was this much more underground thing.
Okay.
So initially people were very suspicious, like, who are you, what are you doing, and
are you from the police?
Hopefully I don't look like a cop. But people were asking me as many questions about what I was doing as I was about what they were doing. I worked with a very small camera, and I was loading film, so they were like, well, I guess whatever you're doing, you're not going to be doing it that quickly because the film takes time.
Yeah.
So then I gained the acceptance of a group of artists, and that snowballed. I met other artists because of them, and then my sort of journalistic instincts kicked in, and that network kept growing and growing. And now I've met artists from dozens of countries around the world, not to mention all over here in Miami.
You've mentioned this awful word, gentrification. What do you think? What's the future of places like Wynwood Wall when we think about the gentrification process?
Miami has this history of sort of like rapid gentrification. It happened in South Beach, and it happened in the design district, and now it's happening in Wynwood. Yeah, it's happened. But who's going to protest about that? I mean, Wynwood was like a test case for developers.
Oh, right.
They figured it out. They know the formula now.
Yeah.
They know that in order to make a neighborhood cool,
first let the artists.
Right. And now, you know, Wynwood is its own best friend and worst enemy.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, the jury's still out and what's going to ultimately be Wynwood in the future. It's fascinating to watch, and I think that now they're on the precipice. They understand that the artists are integral to the fabric of the community, but before the artists were just the locals, and most of them have been, I don't know if scared off, but just have moved on because, you know, they can't afford it. It became too difficult, too burdensome to live there with the crowds and the parking and sort of all the issues that go with this rapidly gentrifying area. So the people who made that neighborhood unique in the first place have moved on. You know, they've sold their property, they've been forced out by their landlord. I photograph people who are like, oh, I've lived in 5 places this last year because everywhere I go, the landlord buys the building and then kicks everyone out, and then, you know, they want to build some new project. And of course, you know, these are lower income people. Wynwood was known as El Barrio and was a Puerto Rican neighborhood for more than 50 years.
But isn't it worth saving? I mean, these are very unique neighborhoods, very unique cultures, very unique, I mean, and people who cannot, you know, fight for themselves. I'm thinking maybe of this, you know, European leftist perspective, but shouldn't...
I think that the big problem in America is that people are so busy working that they don't have time to protest or to unify and then have a voice, because, you know, people have to survive, and if they have to take time away from their jobs and their family to unify and to present a voice against the gentrification, I mean, that takes a lot of effort. And these developers, they have deep pockets. I mean, a building sold in Wynwood in the last few months for $53.5 million. So, I mean, there's millions. We're talking about millions of dollars. I mean, I've been in discussions in community outreaches and efforts, and the developers fully realize that in order to stay authentic, that they need to keep the art in some way.
Wondering how.
But that's the thing. I mean, now it's going to take on this curated aspect. Before, it was more like a Wild West, more of a frontier feeling to it. And, you know, now things have been sort of tamped back or more under control.
No, that's good.
In some ways.
Some ways, yeah.
There's still quite a bit of graffiti and vandalism there.
And how to distinguish between, you know, these wild tags and the real art? Can you do this? Because I know that, I think in Paris, yes, they've been trying to decide, all right, this one is just a wild tag, we can clean this. And this one isn't a piece of art. Can you tell me? You know, I'm absolutely like...
Right. So from the outsider's perspective, street art is when an artist is working with permission. They're making a mural, 9 times out of 10, they're doing it in plain view of the public. You know, they maybe have a letter or the permission, they have a scaffolding, you know, they have a team of people who are helping them paint. And graffiti is vandalism, it's breaking the law. You know, usually they're doing the work surreptitiously or in the cover of night. You know, they wouldn't necessarily want to be seen, or they want to be known for what they're doing. And they're known to many people, but within that genre.
Undercover.
Right.
All right.
It's a subculture, it's a world unto itself.
I see. And can you tell me more about those artists you're meeting? who are those people? Where do they come from? What inspires them?
They come from everywhere.
Yeah.
What's very interesting is that Wynwood, street art, and graffiti is a very democratic space.
Okay.
Artists can go there, secure a wall, get permission, and fulfill their objective. If they're getting paid, well, then they have to do what the property owner or client wants. But when they're not getting paid, usually they get to paint exactly what they want. You know, the more you pay, the less the less
free artist
right.
is. And was Banksy here? Okay,
I mean, I don't know him personally, so I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
But in one of my books, somebody did some graffiti saying like, "Where are you, Banksy?"
Come on. Yeah.
You know, but he wants to take over something when he works. So Miami is maybe not the best environment for him.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
pleasure.
Pleasure.